A beautiful young purple-haired lady had been consistently having nightmares since she was 10 years old, and it was always about the same problem. In her dream, a white fox would come after her and devour her heart. Lately, the dreams had gotten worse, and it felt like the nightmare would come as soon as she closed her eyes. So, the poor girl had no choice but to go to the temple where adults indulged in fortune-telling in a desperate attempt to find a solution to her problem. The lady at the temple leaped to her feet and announced that it just could be the once-in-a-thousand-year inexorable doom. She then announced her sale of a bracelet to help resist the evil fox, sold at an exorbitant price, though it did look suspiciously like one of those jade bracelets that could be seen everywhere on the streets. The girl then had to ditch the quack, trying to ignore the old woman who was shouting about how she'd get plagued by evil spirits, and then she wouldn't be able to help the girl. The girl was not scared of any incoming doom, and she would not buy a fake charm bracelet. She said the doom could come because she would tear off its skin as soon as she saw it. With a yawn, the girl resumed her life and found her friend, who informed her that the bonfire was about to start. The main girl with the brilliant ribbons was hesitant about participating as she was not good at playing games, but her friend insisted, and in the end, the other girl was forcibly dragged to join in on the games. The games were the typical teenage games where everyone wanted to know about the other's crushes. The main girl, Chi Yan, was asked to share a secret, but she had none, and chose a dare. So, the kids dared her to go to Forbidden Zone. Chi Yan was completely unbothered and accepted the dare immediately, and headed off into the woods alone. It was dark as the young girl stepped into the Forbidden Zone. The girl was unafraid as she had been trained in Taekwondo since her nightmares began, and she was not scared of haunted houses or even ghosts. The girl with the ribbons decided to take a 10-minute stroll, and then she'd return to the camp to sleep. Casually, she walked through the woods until a sound made her pause. Amidst the whisper of the branches of the leaves, there was the sound of a rattling chain and the flick of one fluffy white ear. A handsome face looked out in the dark. It had already gotten late, and the teacher wished the students a good night, and everybody went to their respective camps, but one student, Xiao Shun, was a little worried that Chi Yan had not returned. The girl informed the boy that Chi Yan seemed to be having a great time in the Forbidden Zone, however. Yao Shun noted that the message had been sent 1 hour before. In the dark, the girl with ribbons only just realized that she was lost. The place was eerie, and now she worried that she could be in danger, freaking out when she got startled, but fortunately, it was only a mouse. The girl was worried as the old woman's voice haunted her, telling her that evil spirits would come after her. Recalling that memory somehow enraged the ribboned girl, who yelled that she would skin the fox if he dared to show up. Just then, she stepped on something soft and sparkling. Shining her light on it, the main girl leaned in closer, oblivious to the dark figure that had now appeared behind her. The fox man had heard her threat, and he wanted her to say that to his face. Of course, the girl freaked out and lashed out, prepared to kill her enemy, the fox. However, he suddenly grabbed her arm, and Chi Yan froze in shock as she found that the beautiful silver fox had 8 fluffy tails. The girl now belatedly wished that she had heeded the fortune-teller's warnings. Now she had encountered a monster, but she had to stay brave. The girl bit the tail and tried to make a quick escape, but she got grabbed rather quickly. Her captor was amused, asking why she was running. Of course, she feared that he would devour her heart. The fox was amused by her struggle and just responded that he was not the kind to devour his savor. This news confused Chi Yan, so the fox explained that the one who found the 9th foxtail was his savior. The severed tail had transformed into the bracelet that the main girl now wore on her wrist, and because of her, his seal was undone. The girl was still a little confused and wondered if he was talking about the severed tail that she had just stepped on. She tried to wiggle out of the savior title, but the fox had no intention of letting her go that easily. He held her close, saying that he would repay her with all of his heart and effort. Somehow, this news just further annoyed his savior. Suddenly, she heard the noise of the other students who had come to look for her. They were so relieved to find her, and she was surprised that the strange fox had disappeared. At any rate, she followed her friends, and a blonde, fluffy boy appeared behind the watching fox. The boy laughed that the fox's severed tail was found by an ordinary girl, but the fox needed to retrieve his tail to get back his power and regain his freedom. The next day, the fox had casually transformed into modern clothes, modeling himself after a poster he saw. His name was Ran, and he immediately got a lift from a taxi driver who was awed by his good looks. The fox planned to somehow find the girl, but the taxi drove him to a really suspicious spot. Then, with a leering grin, the taxi driver began to extort the fox. The fox was amused by this tactic, confessing that he had no money, but of course, the driver did not buy that. Instead, the driver grinned with a wicked glint in his eyes, saying that if the fox would not give money, then he would collect something else. The evil man did not care as long as the fox served him well and let him have lots of fun. However, the fox then transformed into his true self and said that he would send the driver to hell to have some fun. The driver then dared to freak out about that. A few minutes later, the driver was converted to a worshipper of the fox. The fox had the powers of mesmerizing eyes to confuse people's minds, and the driver now obeyed his every command. Armed with his first minion, the fox resumed his search for the mysterious girl. Meanwhile, Chi-Yan was busy wondering how she could not find one more piece for her puzzle. Then the girl froze when she was reminded of the weird fox bracelet on her arm. Unfortunately, no matter what she did, she couldn't take it off. So, the girl sighed and figured that he would just hack at the bracelet with a knife instead. Chi-Yan was very busy planning how to cut her problems out of her life, when suddenly the fox appeared behind her, whispering sweet nothings about how the bracelet could not be cut. The best way would be for her to aim that dangerous knife at her heart. Of course, the girl immediately rejected such horrible masochistic tendencies, but she found herself screaming in the middle of class. Turns out that it was just a nightmare. It was rather embarrassing, so she pretended to be sick to spare herself from further humiliation. The poor girl truly did feel sick in the head, and she needed to get rid of her toxic dreams. To make things worse, her period came early. The girl sighed about her very sad life as a creepy, beautiful monster was now haunting her, and she could not get rid of the bracelet no matter what she tried. Now Chi-Yan wondered if she was truly in life-threatening danger, and the girl worried very much about this, thinking of going back to buy the charm bracelet that would protect her from the evil fox. The girl had never imagined that she would go this far, but she needed rest and relief. Triumphant, the girl managed to climb over the school wall just to get caught by the very fox she was trying to avoid. And he teased her for skipping school. The last thing she expected was to see the handsome human fox, now with much shorter hair and a winning smile, asking if she was running away from him. The girl with the ribbons was not pleased, but she suddenly slipped and fell, right into the arms of the man she'd been trying to avoid, though he caught her with his tail. He had even changed his form just so that he could find her. Chi-Yan was not at all pleased to see the fox, yelling at him for hanging out in a tree, but he just teased her, knowing that she was scared of being so high in a tree. He smiled and teased that she would not be in danger, and that he wanted to repay his dear savior. With a dazzling smile, Ran, the fox, asked if she had any wishes that she would like to fulfill. He had not lied to her. As a repayment for saving his life, he could fulfill any wish that she had. By fulfilling her wish, he would then be able to live in peace. So, the fox begged ever so charmingly as he took her chin in his hands. He wanted to know what it was that she wished for. Buried deep in her heart, the girl desired just one thing at that moment: a sanitary pad. The fox was a little stunned. Most people tended to wish for gold or something similar. The fox was not even quite sure what a sanitary pad was supposed to be. The girl insisted that she needed it urgently right now, and she immediately sent him to the convenience store. The fox was confused, but he laughed lightly and agreed to help her. Leaving her in the tree, he walked off to get the sanitary pad. Chi-Yan was stupefied at how blank she had gotten when he was around, and she wondered if the fox was using his powers to try and confuse her. The girl was determined not to fall for his tricks and snuck down the tree. While he was gone, the sneaky cat-like girl would not make any mistake. She needed to go buy the charm bracelet before he came back. Meanwhile, the poor fox was still pondering over the sanitary pad issue, wondering if it was something that emperors and nobles had longed to possess. It seemed that there was more than met the eye, but no matter the cost, he was determined to fulfill this wish for her. So, he really did go to the convenience store to buy all of the sanitary pads that they had, thus inconveniencing any and every woman within a 10-mile radius of the place. The Sha woman was indeed glad to see that the girl had returned, and Chi-Yan was the picture of humility as she asked for another shot at getting the ancestral divine bracelet. The woman then groaned and said someone had already reserved it, making a show so that she could hike up the price even more. The old woman insisted that the girl needed to offer a higher price in order to get the charm bracelet, and she hiked up the price to even further inconceivable levels, saying that she never lies. Meanwhile, the fox had indeed successfully bought all of the pads, but he had no idea what the weirdly packaged items were. They did not look special at all. It was so odd that this treasure also had a distinction between day and night usage. Seeing his confusion, the lady at the desk happily explained the situation to him, and slowly the fox realized that he had been fooled. His savior had played a prank on him, and he laughed that she was really good at teasing him. Chi-Yan stalked away from the fortune-teller's shop, upset because the woman was so very clearly a fraud. She had even dared to ask for such an expensive amount. The girl was tempted to report that false priestess. However, the girl with the ribbons was still worried about the thought of that fox really following her everywhere. She had been learning Taekwondo for so long, and yet that also felt useless. She wished she could talk to a friend who could help. But he was away on a business trip for a few months, and he had not posted anything on his social media. She wondered when her friend would ever return. Back at the school, in G1 Class 6, the final result of the voting had been decided. The students cheered as the class monitor of Class 6 was Yin Ran, the fox. The The girl with the ribbons was shocked to see such chaos in her class when she only stepped out for a few minutes. A friend welcomed her back, and the main girl asked how a fox had ended up the class monitor and how he'd gotten into their class in the first place. However, everyone was acting like the boy had always been a member of the class. Instead, Chi-Yan was treated like the weird one, and the fox told the others that the main girl was just feeling a little unwell. Her friend gasped and wondered how the fox had even known that the cat girl was on her period. Meanwhile, the main girl was speechless. The stinking fox had charmed the class, even inviting everyone to have boba tea later. The fox approached her with a sweet smile, telling his savior not to be so upset as he bought her a treat. Even Chi-Yan was shocked that the fox knew that she liked the taste of blueberries. She easily guessed that her friend had told the fox all about it. Of course, the girl rejected the sweet as she still did not trust the fox. Since she was on her period, she wanted him to be considerate by leaving her alone. The fox watched her avoid him, slightly annoyed that the woman refused to be influenced by his charm. Everyone stood on his side, but she refused to be controlled. Nevertheless, he would not give up. His savior did not permit him to call her by her first name, and she gave that permission only to her friend Lulu. The fox would have to call her something else, and though he was clearly annoyed, the fox agreed. He said that he would take his time to get familiar with her and that there was no rush. Still, the girl was suspicious, and it turned out that she was rightfully suspicious. The fox planned to get his tail back and restore his energy. Then, the first thing he would do is to devour her heart. He also hoped that her heart would be blueberry-flavored. Chi-Yan rested in the infirmary. She had taken to sleeping there during school hours. The girl had yet another nightmare about the stinking fox, and it angered her greatly. The fox who sat patiently by her bed could not understand why the girl hated him so much. Ran wondered if it was because he did not fit the modern aesthetic. He was so handsome and gentle, plus he treated her so well, so naturally she should be head over heels in love with him. The fox wondered what had gone wrong and if he ought to try a different approach. Lulu came in to ask if the menstrual pains were still hurting Yan, as she was on a first-name basis with the other girl. The sick girl was doing well, so Lulu decided to take over the watch from Ran, especially since it seemed that the ribbon girl wanted nothing to do with him. However, the fox insisted that he would stay since the main girl had asked him to buy her sanitary pads. This was shocking to Lulu as that was such a delicate item to buy. Well, the friend could not help but assume that they must be close if she asked him to buy her pads. So, she left the two alone once again. Still, even Lulu knew that something was up, so the little brunette was waiting by the door. Meanwhile, the fox pondered. His savior always seemed so strong, but she was a weak little girl right now. He tried to coax her awake to eat some soup, but she still wanted nothing to do with him, and wanted her friend instead. It was becoming a very old record for her to wake up and see the fox in front of her. He said that he was worried about her, his fluffy tail dancing around in the room. Ran revealed that, naturally, only the savior would be able to see his tails. Anyway, he wanted her to hurry and drink the soup, so she accused him of being Pan-Jinlian, always making people take medicine. Of course, she thought he might have poisoned it. So he decided to take the first step of trust by taking a spoonful first. Suddenly, Chi-Yan realized that he was about to eat the food that Yun Lulu had brought for her. She would not allow him to eat Yun Lulu's food, and the fox pouted, saying that he'd been taking care of her all this time and she was being so mean. Well, the main girl insisted that she did not need him, of all people, to take care of her, and defiantly chugged down the bowl of soup. Meanwhile, Lulu was still unsuccessfully trying to eavesdrop, and she wondered why it looked like they were being lovey-dovey inside the nurse's office. Chi-Yan had finished her medicine and was just attempting to get some more rest. Then someone stepped in, asking Yin-Ran if he was the one who suddenly appeared at school. This immediately seized the main girl's attention as everyone else acted like the fox had always been there. Yi Zhaoxun had shown up, a bespectacled beauty, and he greeted the fox. The main girl asked if the materials analyzed from before were ready now. She then happily dismissed the fox, saying that she had to talk to Zhaoxun in private. The boy had to comply and said that he would see her later. However, he whispered to the man in glasses that this was okay since this was their first meeting. He planned for them to quickly get to know each other. With those ominous words, the fox was gone. Then the girl asked if this was truly the first time that Zhaoxun was meeting the fox boy. The boy admitted that it was their first meeting, but it was also like they'd known each other for a long time. It was strange. At any rate, he asked if she was okay, and he wanted her to take it easy and rest, because he was here for her now. Like a cat, she freaked out about him scattering her hair. Meanwhile, the fox caught Lulu trying to eavesdrop, and the girl immediately tried to deny what she'd been doing. However, the fox did not care about that, and instead wanted to know what Yan is most afraid of. Of course, Lulu had no intentions of telling him that. The boy really wanted to know about her weaknesses. The bell rang and school closed. The girl with the ribbons happily left her school, wondering where her friend was. Lulu had ditched since she'd been gossiping to Rin, and she knew Yan would hate that. Yan pondered all the changes in her life for a moment and decided to make another attempt at getting rid of the accursed bracelet. The blacksmith was amused, as he had smashed iron all of his life, so he was sure that taking the bracelet off would be a walk in the park. Chi-Yan was also rather hopeful about this, and she did not care even if the bracelet broke. There was a huge clang as the man made his first attempt. Later, the girl was seen making her way home, the stupid bracelet still in her hand. The man had tried his best to the point that he told her to give up and to stop messing with a heaven-sent object. The poor girl had done everything that she could. Her whole arm was going numb, but the bracelet remained fine. Suddenly, she noticed a person sitting on the floor. It was the stinking fox, and he had the nerve to be fast asleep on her doorstep. Suddenly, he opened his beautiful eyes and called out to his savior. That is when she noticed that the poor boy looked injured. 5 hours ago, the fox thought about how he did not want to use tricks against his savior unless necessary. The lady at the clothes store was busy gushing over him, and he asked her to pour him some tea. It would be so much more convenient if his savior was as easy to work with as everyone else. He recalled all he had heard from Lulu, about Yan being quick-tongued but tender-hearted, and how she was more likely to respond to soft things but not to force. The girl especially liked small animals. He was an animal too, after all, but she seemed to hate foxes the most. So, Yinran wandered the street in thought as he tried to figure out how to get his savior to like him. It was a modern time, so he had to adapt to modern life and customs. The other guy, for instance, had been thriving by relying on his cute appearance and was happy to help Ran if he ever needed future assistance. His precious savior was often surrounded by ordinary and crude men, and the fox put a lot of effort into adapting his hairstyle to fit the changing trends. Yet, he could not compare to the people that his mistress liked. It was also bothersome. Even as he walked, he could feel the woman still trying to smash his bracelet. A nearby man called to say that he sold freshly baked bread with strawberry jam. So, now the fox presented himself, leaning on her door like he had been injured, calling to her for help. The young lady was shocked to see him, and she tried to help, asking what was wrong. Things were finally working out just as he wanted them to, and the fox smirked, saying that he felt so many ruthless instruments pierce his heart. Now the girl was worried that smashing the bracelet earlier had hurt the fox. So, she offered to help take him to the nearby hospital. However, the fox rested his head on her shoulder, saying that a fox could not go to a hospital that treats humans. Chi-Yan now wondered why he was so fragile, and he wondered why she would not at least take him home. She asked him to bear it a little while and cursed that she was really unlucky in her life as she carried him inside. Suddenly, he was unsteady in her arms and they fell over, one on top of the other, in a very romantic pose. How adorable. The girl then growled at him, asking why he was so heavy that they would fall like this. Suddenly, she also realized that there was something up with the sweet-smelling blood on his face. The sneaky fox dipped his hand in the jam on her face, and she growled that he was not to touch her face without permission. The poor fox asked why his savior was being so harsh even when she was injured, and she reminded him that it was not her job to help him out. Chi-Yan complained that Ran should be strong enough to take care of himself without the need for a girl's aid. Still, Ran insisted that he was so weak and in need of her sweet and tender care. He asked her to help him up, but she was still wondering where that sweet, fragrant smell was coming from. The girl was greatly annoyed, but she could not be so mean when he was hurt. So she told him to rest on the sofa and not to cause trouble. The fox went on being very dramatic about his pain, smirking to himself as he found that he could get her to do what he wanted while he acted weak. He wanted her to make a proper wish, giving her time to consider it a bit more. So the girl did make a wish. She hoped that he would heal from his injury quickly so that she could stay away from him. The fox sighed that she had saved him twice, and their clan had to fulfill the wishes of their savior before they could peacefully leave. However, the girl rubbed the fake blood as she had finally figured out that he had painted his face with strawberry jam. Now she was enraged. She had found it strange that the bracelet was not damaged, but he was acting like a dying bird, plus the strange scent of the blood had given him away. The fox pouted, annoyed that he could not fool her, and she scolded him for his prank. He even tried to keep up the weak bird act, and she yelled at him to quit. It was not working anymore. She had been deceived by the fox multiple times in her dreams, so she would not fall for him anymore. Chi-Yan said a fox was always cunning and deceitful, but there was a reason he acted the way that he did, so he asked her not to speak so recklessly. However, the girl insisted that she would not be swayed by his sweet words. Ran had been kind to her, yet she was not grateful. The girl was surprised to see that the fox's fur was slowly turning purple. She worried about what her nemesis planned to do, and the fox teased that she was so smart, so she should be able to guess. If not for the fact that he needed his last tail back, he could have easily gotten rid of his nasty savior. Chi-Yan was sure again that the fox was just trying to deceive her. She would not believe a word that he had to say, so she wanted him to stop messing around. Meanwhile, Ran was disappointed that he still needed to be patient. Things were complicated involving this girl, and he noticed that she was oddly cradling the bracelet in her hand ever so gently. A strange feeling had blossomed in his chest, and he pulled her hand away, telling her to stop touching the bracelet. Chi-Yan was confused by his request. Meanwhile, Ran demanded to know just what she had done to the bracelet. The cat girl immediately lashed out, saying that she did not know why his fur was changing color. The fox was perplexed that the woman he did not like had such a huge impact on the bracelet. He grabbed her hand to test a theory, and his eyes widened in horror, to find that he felt strangely comfortable when she held him. It was bizarre, and Yan was freaking out in the background while Ran tried to come to terms with the new feelings bubbling inside of him. The situation was far beyond his control, and the fox did not want to cause any trouble. The girl, of course, did not believe him, and now that she was better, she wanted him to leave. Then, Ran wanted to know if she lived alone, as it was rather desolate and lonely in her house. He saw a nearby picture and asked if the person was her father. Of course, she had no desire to answer any of his questions. So, the fox changed tactics and instantly activated the biggest puppy eyes that he could muster, asking her to let him stay. The little parasite really intended to move in with her, of course. She did not want a strange man in her house. The fox sulked that he could only stay if he was injured. The poor thing had nowhere else to go as no one cared for him for 100 years, so he could only follow her. He was new to the modern world, so he apologized for being so awkward, but everything he had done was to leave a good impression on her and get close to her. Ran was reaching out sincerely, hoping that she would take his hand. He promised to prove that he truly wanted to repay her kindness, and for a moment she wondered if she could truly trust him. The man even offered to take care of her while she was still on her period, and he moved to do just that before she could protest. Meanwhile, Xiaoshun had found Yan's notebook on the desk. He had picked it up for her, and he would even bring it to her house. That was troublesome. He was already on his way there. The fox happened to notice his sweet savior was leaving the house, and he asked where she was going. The girl had to go downstairs really quickly, so she just told the fox not to touch anything while she was gone. Shun had learned from Lulu that Chi-Yan had already left the school. The girl had left her notebook behind, so he would take it to her. Lulu beamed to hear that Shun would go out of his way to deliver the book, though they did live in the same neighborhood. She had not been feeling well, so he was happy to help. So he set off, and the two met up with each other. The boy smiled that he had not waited long, and he had gotten her some milk to help with her recovery, as well as handing her the notebook that she had left behind. Then Zun asked if she would be able to make it to school the next day. Yan insisted that she was fine, though an exorcism was needed lately. Anyway, she was not that fragile. She sure hoped that the entire class didn't know she'd lain in the infirmary all day because of menstrual pains, and she blamed the fox as usual. The girl explained that she had left early because there were some things that she needed to resolve. Recently, she was also considering exorcisms, and he laughed that she believed in those. Chi-Yan had lately found that she now believed in things that she had not taken seriously in the past. Even if evil spirits were about, she had a tutelary deity at her side, so there was no need to worry. Though she did have an annoying fox by her side as well. The girl then thanked Xiaoshun one last time, saying that she would treat him to a meal at another time. The boy watched his friend walk away, but he had not done all this so that she could treat him to a meal. Xiaoshun was just wondering why Ran had called Chi-Yan his savior earlier. Meanwhile, the girl had happily returned home, cursing at the fox. She had just remembered that he had homework to do since he was a student at their school now. Searching for the fox, she heard a loud noise coming from above and raced over to discover what had happened. Chi-Yan wondered what that noise could be about and quickly took off her shoes to go investigate. She found Ran with puzzle pieces scattered at his feet as he very carefully picked them up. The fox quickly apologized, and the girl froze to see that her puzzle had been undone. She had worked very hard on making it, and she had just finished this part yesterday. Now, the girl was enraged once again. Meanwhile, Ran noticed that his savior seemed to love puzzles, and it took her a lot of time to solve them, so she did not appreciate him messing up her work. He offered to help fix it, and she wondered if he was good at this sort of thing. He said that it was easy, so she decided to make a game of it. The puzzle had 29 pieces, but if he could finish it within 5 minutes, then she would let him stay. The puzzle was a little difficult, with the key tricks in the 5 right angles. Usually, when people start by completing the 4 corners of a puzzle, they would find an extra right angle and get confused. Moreover, many pieces had straight edges, which could confuse a few beginners. Ran picked up the blue pieces and studied them carefully, and Yan mentally boasted that it took her hours to solve it. So, she was sure that the fox would fail. Ran then proceeded to silence her doubt by solving the puzzle in just a few seconds. The girl was shocked that he had solved that in under 2 minutes. and Ran was proud to show off his awesome abilities to his savior. In the past, high-ranking officials and nobles begged him for help in solving their problems, and he always won in matters of intelligence. Now, she had to keep her promise to take him in, and the girl was very disappointed about that. She always kept her promises, but this was the most difficult promise to keep. At any rate, Chi-Yan took a bath and was soon changed into her pajamas. She watched the fox as she had left him solving puzzles downstairs, and she found, much to her speechless jealousy, that she had already completed half of a really difficult puzzle. The fox called to the cat, asking if she would join him in solving the puzzle. The girl scoffed, saying that he was responsible for fixing it. She was going to sleep and he was not to touch anything. That was all. The fox wished his savior a good night, as he pondered more about the wish that he could grant her to earn his freedom. The fox was beginning to notice that his dear savior was starting to trust him. How very convenient. She could now fall asleep even though they were in the same house. The fox decided that he would not pretend anymore. Chi-Ran awoke again from a nightmare and gasped. It was so early in the morning, and she noticed the completed puzzle on the table. The fox truly had finished the entire puzzle, and he had even left a sticky note with a message to let her finish the last piece of puzzle for the sense of satisfaction. The fox was turning out to be quite knowledgeable after all, so Chi-Yan decided to forgive him temporarily for last night's incident since his attitude seemed nice. However, she did wonder where the fox had gone. Later at school, Lulu raced over to greet Yan. It turned out that the girl with the ribbons had become popular overnight. Back when she had gone to the forbidden area, someone had taken a picture of her and posted it to the class group chat. She had become a mysterious celebrity, and many people thought that she was quite good-looking. The girls wondered who had posted the picture, and Lulu asked if she had added any friends recently. The girl with the ribbons was still puzzled by everything, and now lots of people wanted to talk about her trip to the Forbidden Zone. The boys were boasting that they would have protected her and not let her go alone, but she just said going to the forbidden area got people wrapped up in things that were better left alone. This left the boys very confused. If Chi-Yan had not taken that deer, she would not have met the fox, and her life would not be so complicated. She found the fox at her seat, with a note in his hand, and before she could ask, he bravely told her that he cared about her, making her puzzled at his sudden words. The fox smiled that he had not expected her to be so popular, and she easily figured out that he was the one meddling in her business. A guy had invited the girl to meet him later at the playground, and the note Ran was reading was also from that guy. Lulu asked if Yan wanted company for moral support, but the ribbon girl was sure that she could handle it alone. Later that afternoon, the fox pondered on how boring private tutoring was, though trees in the school were perfect for lounging. It had been a few days on Earth, and he had made very little progress. Only by fulfilling the heartfelt wish of the person who found his severed tail would he regain his freedom. That is what the elder from the heavenly realm said. However, the woman who found his tail seemed to have no desires, and he could not just satisfy her with money either. Underneath the tree, the girl met the person who really wanted to be friends with her. It was a nervous, bespectacled girl. Chi-Yan was kind to the nervous girl, pulling her over so that they could sit for a while. The fox watched with jealousy, noting that the savior only seemed to be nice to other girls. Other classmates under the tree were whispering nasty things about the bespectacled girls and acting like a pair of jealous gossips. The fox then appeared behind them and noticed that they were talking about his savior. Ever the opportunist, he wanted them to tell him all that they knew about that woman. Meanwhile, Chi-Yan sat with the girl, saying that she recalled how shy the girl in glasses used to be. The shy girl confessed that she had been too shy about approaching Chi-Yan because everyone knew about her feelings and mocked her. So, she gathered her courage and wrote the other girl a note. The girl with the ribbons pointed out that writing a letter also brought about ridicule. Anyway, now that they were friends, the girl did not have to be so shy anymore. The girls kept talking and chatting with smiles, telling each other to follow their hearts. The shy girl was entranced by the beauty of Yan. Later, Lulu checked up on how the meeting had gone, and the ribbon girl said that it was just someone who wanted to be friends. On the other side, the girl with glasses was cornered by a bunch of girls, and she nervously asked what they were trying to do. The girls then succumbed to the very typical childish bullying, because why not? Just then, Chi-Yan appeared behind the girls, and she was shocked to find that there were still losers who would use books to hit other people. The other girls told the main girl to stay out of it, since they thought that her standards for friends were way too low. However, that was none of their business, and the girl stretched out a hand to help the poor girl with glasses. When the other girls tried to attack the ribbon girl, she easily dodged them like they were nothing but annoying buzzing mosquitoes. The other girl was angry and embarrassed, determined to fight and reclaim her honor. Chi-Yan also dropped her bag, saying that she also had no plans to hold back her strength either. The foxboy watched the whole thing unfold with a wicked grin on his face, when the girls gang up on Chi-Yan, beating her to a pulp, and just when the lead bully would be about to land the final blow. The fox will jump in to rescue them. telling the bullies to stay away from her. In Ran's imagination, his savior would then be so happy to see him that she would fall for him and do everything he wanted. His dreams sure were lofty, and he seemed to have forgotten that Yan took fight training classes. He rushed out to save her just to find out that she had taken care of the trash by herself. Anyway, the ribbon girl thought that it was convenient, and she asked Ran to help take some of the girls to the clinic. It turns out that the fox had never heard of Taekwondo, and he'd gotten his gossip about Yan from a babble of untrustworthy bullies. The teacher scolded the girls for fighting, and the ribbon girl explained that the seniors had started it. The teacher was still throwing a fuss, but fortunately the fox popped in to charm her and calm her down. The teacher was still very angry, saying that violent students should just drop out of school. Earlier, after the girls had finished gossiping, the fox had used his charm on them while he sat in the tree. He had told the lead bully to finish what she planned to do, no matter who tried to stop her. After the fight, other girls had dragged the main bully girl away after the fight, worried about what they would do if the teacher found out. The fox then learned about Chiyan's Taekwondo abilities, and then made a lousy excuse about why he was in the area. She pointed out that she did not need his help for matters like this, and the fox had sulked. And now, the girl found herself facing a difficult situation where she was being asked to drop out of school. The teacher had indeed also been charmed by the fox. This was why she was now pushing for her expulsion. Her beautiful toxic roommate was doing everything in his power to push her away from other people and into his arms. The girl should have been expelled, but Yinran pleaded for her, so the verdict was changed. This surprised Chiyan to hear. The girls would be let off with a warning, but that was unacceptable to the ribbon girl. The seniors had been bullying a classmate, and they were escaping without blame or consequence. It was unfair. The teacher yelled that the girls had no room to complain since the other girls were seriously injured, and the two were told to clean the gym for a week. The students left as she had instructed, and the hypnosis cleared from the surprised teacher. Even her fellow teacher admitted that the woman had been so scary that even he had been too scared to speak up. The teacher laughed nervously that she had spouted a lot of nonsense, and then scolded the other teacher for letting his students go around bullying others. Meanwhile, Chiyan suspected that everything that had happened just now felt rather strange. Even the seniors who had bullied the bespectacled girl said that she did not know why she had acted the way she had, and now she was waking up in the hospital. The ribbon girl showed up to apologize for beating them up, but the senior did not even care. She felt like she had been cursed to act the way that she did. Now, the cat-like girl pondered the whole thing and agreed that something was not right. She pointed out to Ran how the teacher specifically mentioned his name and how he changed her mind. The fox smiled, saying that he had helped his savior. So, Chiyan decided that it was time for the fox to help her one more time. The day's wish was docile, and the fox stared at his savior in surprise. The girl groaned and whined, saying that she wanted him to clean up a few things for her. Things had been so strange lately that she was starting to wonder if she would be better off just avoiding him. Ran noted that his savior had gotten quite cautious now. The fox warned that the teacher was coming, and the girl panicked because she had not started cleaning yet. She quickly got to work, happily waving to the teacher, and the teacher said that she wanted to apologize for being so harsh. Those bullies were also being reprimanded by Mr. Ray, so the teacher would stay out of their business. But she had faith in the kids in her class. She also thought that Yin Ran was a pretty good kid for helping her students. Anyway, the girl could go home early once she was done cleaning the gym, and she was told not to take too long. The girl thanked her teacher, and they watched her leave. It satisfied Chiyan greatly to see that her teacher had still not changed. However, her bad judgment was showing since she thought Yinran was a good kid. The fox was still acting all high and mighty, and it annoyed Yinran greatly. Then, the girl asked the fox to bend down. She needed to reach a high place, and she was sure that the kind fox would not reject her. Just as she expected, he bent, and she planned to step on him. Deciding to tease him, she made him move left and right with her on top of him, and he said that he would do anything to make her happy. Annoyed, she kept making him move about. The fox had also realized that he was totally getting bullied. At some point, the ribbon girl noticed that he had stopped following her orders, and she asked why he was no longer moving. Moving about like this was too much work, so he pushed to his feet and caught her on his shoulders, holding her in place. Then the beautiful fox said that it was much more convenient now. The girl got enraged and yelled at the fox to put her down, but then he reminded her that she needed to wipe the glass. Chiyan then asked the fox to stop moving around. She could barely contain her trembling, and she growled, promising to hurt him if he kept moving around. The fox teased, asking if she was afraid. The girl then yelled and asked him to put her down or she would break his neck. The two kept up their back and forth when Xiao Yun suddenly showed up and asked what they were doing. The ribbon girl was shocked to see her friend, and she grabbed the fox's neck and leaped down from his shoulders to ask her friend why he had come. The girl smiled brightly, and the fox watched with jealousy. He wondered if his savior was some kind of cat, since she liked scratching his neck and biting his tail. The bespectacled boy smiled, saying that he heard that she was still around, so he had come to see her, and he wondered if she needed any help. The girl was getting ready to go back, and she asked about Lulu and if she had gone home. The two did a bit of catching up, and the boy noticed the fox in the back once again. The girl dismissed the fox, saying that she would clean by herself the next day. She did not want the fox to see just how much she cared for Xiaoshun. Shun then asked the fox to stop bothering Yan, and Ran immediately got irritated by this request. The boy with glasses told the fox that the ribbon girl was not interested in him. For some reason, this made the brunette smirk. The fox joked that he had only come to help the cat-like girl, but now he would happily hand the dirty rag to the boy with glasses, so that he could do the dirty work now. There was an odd, jealous staring contest, and then the fox walked away. The fox thought that his savior was as vicious as always. Meanwhile, Jun had felt an inexplicable, familiar feeling of danger when Rand had touched him. Later, Chi-Yan met up with some friends at an expensive place, since all the cheaper places were mysteriously disappearing. Apparently, Yin Ran had been the last to treat them at their favorite place, and Chi-Yan told Lulu to be more cautious around the fox. Ran showed up just in time to catch the girl bad-mouthing him again. He had bought his precious savior some milk tea, but she immediately rejected it. The fox then sulked, saying that his neck had gotten injured, and the cat-like girl was shocked. She then scoffed, saying that he had hurt himself and that it had nothing to do with her. Then she noticed that the sweet milk was expensive, but of course, the fox had gotten the best for his precious savior. Now, Chi-Yan wanted to know exactly where Yin Ran was getting access to so much money.